Well, that's a tune that everybody knows. I mean, Willie Nelson sings it, right?
Yeah. Very
But
hip arrangement, though.
but exactly, yeah, very sophisticated, interesting, creative arrangement of a tune we've heard a million times.
Yeah, a lot of modern stuff in there with great bass playing.
Yeah, again, bass kind of featured prominently, driving the whole thing, and just
I
yeah,
mean, the list of guys that he's played with is Dizzy Gillespie, Benny Carter, Ben Webster, Sarah Vaughan, Billie Holiday, Teddy Wilson, I mean, Roy Eldridge. Wow, that's royalty.
everybody, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and like again, a name that's maybe been a little bit forgotten, but very worthy of our virtuoso playlist here.
Yeah.
And again, the smaller ensemble now, you've got 6 people, not a huge band, but got all the instruments kind of getting their moments and featured, and
Every note was perfect. It was like the timbre and tone and feel and just where it was, the placement of everything, perfect.
yeah, and also the bass player as I don't know if he was the arranger, if he had an arranger, but he's clearly it's his concept, and
Yeah.
showing the bassist as a very sophisticated leader of a band, and not just the guy in the back going thump thump thump.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
So now we come to one of my favorites. Well, they're all my favorites. So, but here's a guy that's like one of the founding fathers, Walter Page. And,
Yeah, man.
And now we're getting into Count Basie for the first time.
So Walter Page was actually the leader of that band first.
Oh,
They
really?
were Walter Page and the Oklahoma Blue Devils.
Now, are you saying that band kind of became the Count Basie Orchestra, or there was
That's
some?
right.
There were. Oh, I didn't. I never realized that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Blue Devils was the progenitor of it. That's where they developed the sound of the band was really developed in that band, and it was a regional band. Walter Page was had his name on it. He's the leader of the band, but the main arranger was Buster Smith, who was Charlie Parker's teacher.
Hmm.
And the star soloist was, of course, Lester Young.
Right. And so Walter Page is born in Missouri, and moves into the Kansas City area in 1910, and there he got a lot of kind of exposure to a lot of different music and the brass bands in the neighborhood, and but one kind of thing I thought was kind of interesting to touch upon, what we had talked about earlier about the instruction, about the important teachers, is there was a guy named Major N. Clark Smith, who was a retired military band leader, and he provided Page his kind of first formal training in music, and Page took up the string bass at his high school, Lincoln High School. And I read a funny quote that I thought we'd share, where he talks about his teacher. And so this is him remembering Major Smith. He said, "Major N. Clark Smith was my teacher in high school. He taught almost everybody in Kansas City. He was a chubby little cat, bald, one of the old military men. He wore glasses on his nose and came from Cuba around 1912 or 1914. He knew all the instruments and couldn't play anything himself, but he could teach." But he could teach. He says, "One day he was looking for a bass player and no one was around, so he looked at me and he said, 'Pagey, get the bass.' I said, 'But,' and he repeated, 'Get the bass.' That's when I got started." And so there you go, a high school teacher, forcing this guy to play this instrument and becomes one of the greatest of all time.
So Walter Page is in charge of the Blue Devils. They go on the notorious tour where they get stranded without any money and disband. And Lester Young's already the star soloist. Buster Smith, Bird's teacher, is already the arranger. And Walter Page is like, Lester liked him so much. What did he say? He said like something to the effect that with any tune you want to play in any key, Walter's ready to go. He just knows every tune, can play it in every key, and the guys loved him for that. Also, he has the ability to play his lines go really high on the bass. it creates a lot of excitement. So by the time they became the Count Basie band, see, they were always doing Kansas City like competition stuff with Benny Moten, and Benny Moten died famously in the dentist chair, I think, and Count Basie kind of moved to Kansas City from New York, and he was a student of Fats Waller, and he moves there to kind of scoop up the opportunity to lead something, and then they became big time in Kansas City and moved to New York and broadcast the Kansas City sound to the rest of the world from there. Walter Page, all the while, is the bass player and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And his ability to play the fast walking four, very clean four, that's kind of the signature. Him and Joe Jones and Count Basie as the sort of new rhythm section sound. You know, Count Basie's time feel is impeccable, just the best. And he has that way of playing with a lot of space. You know, he plays something that blows your mind by just going kalinglunk. You know, that's all he plays. And the bass player and the drummer are creating all this excitement. And Walter Page can go real high on the bass. You know?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a quote here. He started that strolling or walking bass, recalls Harry Sweets Edison, going way up and then coming right on down.
Right.
He did it on four. Right. He did it on 4 strings, but other bass players couldn't get that high, so they started making a 5-string bass with a higher
with a high string.
Yeah, so they could get that sound. That's a great story. But you know, it's not clear that he was the originator of the walking bass style, but he's kind of accepted as the primary proponent of it. That really influenced. Well, because
the music's almost never in 2 anymore.
Right.
So when Wellman does it and Kirby, when they play in 4, it's almost like an augmentation, a temporary augmentation of the two playing.
Yeah.
Whereas Walter Page is in 4 almost all the time.
So let's listen to the Count Basie Orchestra featuring Walter Page and a great song called "Jumpin' at the Woodside."